Hi friends, thank you for tuning in to the Concussion Coach podcast. I am Bethany Lewis, the Concussion Coach. I'm a neurological occupational therapist and certified life coach, and I specialize in guiding people through their concussion recovery journey. I am passionate about helping people understand their injury, speed up their recovery, and reclaim control over their life post-concussion. The purpose of this podcast is to help increase awareness of concussions and the impact they can have on a person's life, and to bring hope to people who have suffered a concussion and those who love them. I firmly believe that sharing stories and knowledge about concussions will bring important light and understanding to this misunderstood and often invisible injury. The information in this podcast is meant to bring that awareness and hope and is not meant as medical advice. The opinions shared are those of the interviewees and my own. If you are suffering with lingering concussion symptoms, I have created a concussion coaching program specifically for you. I will be your mentor to guide you through your recovery journey, offering help with understanding and managing your symptoms, setting achievable goals, and learning how to manage your own thoughts and nervous system in order to get control over your life again. If this program sounds like something that would help you or someone you love, sign up for a free consultation. In the consultation, you'll get valuable information and resources and gain hope for your future. Sign up for your free consultation at the link in the show notes or at my website, www.theconcussioncoach.com. Hi friends, welcome back to the Concussion Coach podcast. Before I introduce my guest today, I just wanted to make sure that you know about the free guide that is available on my website. It's the 5 best ways to support your loved one dealing with a concussion. If you have a friend or family member who is struggling with post-concussion symptoms, or you're the one struggling and would like your loved ones to know more about what you're going through and how they can help, head over to my website, theconcussioncoach.com, and download the free guide. I am so happy to get to welcome back Natasha Wilch to the podcast today. I am part of her Concussion Nerds program and got to spend some time with her in her beautiful hometown of Nanaimo, Canada recently, participating in a training that she was conducting. It was beautiful. Natasha knows her stuff and is a really important and leading voice in concussion care today. So I got to interview her back on episode 96. So we will link to that in the show notes and make sure you check it out. It's about what to do if you've had a recent concussion. Again, she knows her stuff. It's so good. So I'm excited to have her back today. Natasha Wilch has been a registered physical therapist since 2011. She attended the University of British Columbia, where she earned a bachelor's in health science and kinesiology, and then her master's in physical therapy. Natasha's passion is evolving the conversation and culture of concussion around the world. She does that through her clinic, Symphony Brain Performance, and her online mentorship program for clinicians. So she has multiple programs, actually, one for clinicians, one for, which is called Concussion Nerds, and also for people who are on a concussion journey themselves. And she also does speaking engagements. When she's not diving into more learning for herself, she's a forever student. You'll find her mentoring clinicians, working with clients, or spending time with her family. So thank you for being here again, Natasha. I'm so excited.
Thank you for having me back. I'm excited to do this again.
Yeah.
And it was so nice to meet you in person.
It is nice to have, like, it's so fun. Like, you get to feel like you get to know people over Zoom, right? But then in person, it's just always a little bit different. So it is nice to have that in-person contact. So thanks. So when I first heard the story of how you got interested in working with people with concussions, I thought it was just a really interesting perspective and different. Like, it's one that we haven't had on my podcast, at least yet. Just this perspective of a child with a parent with post-concussion syndrome. So I'm really grateful for your willingness to come on and get personal here. So thank you. So let's just jump right in, if that's okay. Can you share with us what happened that brought you in to be so passionate about helping people with concussions?
So, it's one of those things that is definitely like hindsight's 2020, because in all honesty, and I'll share the story, but in all honesty, when I got my first concussion client, like, I didn't go into physio to deal with concussion, right? I went into physio to work with spinal cord was actually my goal. And athletes, like every kid who goes into physiotherapy school, I think. But it was interesting for me because I'm a really reflective person. And when I got my first concussion client, it was complete fluke. But as I saw her and I started treating other individuals, there was a passion that was just ignited. Like, I have no other way to say it. And I dove down that rabbit hole with 2 feet and I've never looked back. And as I started talking to more people and I reflecting back on my life, it became apparent, I think, a little bit as to why. And I think when we go into this space and when we work with a more vulnerable population like persistent concussion or brain injury, there's usually some sort of personal link in some capacity for people or for a lot of people. And for me, like you said, it was my dad. And so this is 26 years ago now. So Also remembering like the context of the world of concussion and brain injury has changed so much.
So much.
Um, but I remember I was 17. I was actually probably 16. Nope, I was 16 turning 17 or 17 turning 18. And I always say like we grew up in an older home that had uh like shag carpet throughout it. And I still remember I was sitting, my room had bright purple shag carpet, um, and pink furniture, because my room hadn't been updated since I was a kid. And I remember I was sitting on my bedroom floor studying because that's what I did. And my mom knocked on my bedroom door and told me we had to go to the hospital because my dad had been in an accident. And we got in the car, we drove the 30 minutes into town because we lived a little bit in the country. And I'll never forget walking into the emergency department and seeing my dad being held down by doctors trying to rip out lines and just combative and super like combative from confusion, like trying to
Mhm.
push people away. And my dad's not a small man. And like doctors holding him down and trying to calm him down. And um, yeah, that's an image I'll probably never forget, to be honest. And he was a log home builder. And so he was a hunting guide in the fall, and in the spring and summer he was a log home builder. And they had been unbuilt. They build the homes in the lot and then they like move it and rebuild it again, right? So they'd been dismantling a home and loading it onto the truck to transport it, and a log fell off the truck and landed like on the back of his head.
Oh my gosh.
So he was falls into the moderate brain injury category for sure.
Mhm.
He was flown out to Calgary Hospital initially because of where we lived, and then from there he was transferred to Kelowna Hospital, and he actually stayed in hospital for a month. Um, my mom stayed with him, and at the beginning it was just like, what is like, no one knew what was happening. Um, it was funny though, because again, like you looked at even in hospital, like you looked at my dad, and besides his raging headaches and like his dizziness, he looked fine. So I remember one day my dad's the most epic storyteller in the world. And he tells us this story. My mom was ready to kill him, about how he was tired of being in his hospital bed, in his hospital room, right? And because my dad wandered. So they put a bracelet on him that an alarm would sound anytime he left the unit.
Mm.
And he tells us this story about how all he wanted, he'd been in the hospital now for a few weeks, and all he wanted was a coffee that wasn't delivered on his tray in the morning and to read the paper. That's it. That's all he wanted to do. And I don't remember, like, either my mom had brought him in some regular clothes so he didn't have to wear hospital gowns all the time anymore because they weren't ready to discharge him yet. I don't know why. I don't know the details. But he tells a story about how he put on his regular clothes and he like found like a pair of scissors or something on the nurse's cart. And so he cut the bracelet off his wrist and just like put it in the laundry bin. And then because he looks totally normal, he walks off the unit, goes downstairs, gets a coffee from the coffee shop, and gets a paper and sits down and reads his paper and drinks his coffee. Meanwhile, my mom apparently goes up to visit and she's losing her shit because no one knows where he is. And he's like, all he said, he's like, I just wanted to read the paper. But yeah, so there's like, that was, I never knew, like, so he was literally in the hospital for a month and we never saw him. The first time I actually saw him was Christmas that year.
Wow.
And it was hard, to be honest. So that was my mom, so we knew he'd had a brain injury. And my mom just told us, be like, don't be super loud. Please don't. I have a younger brother who's a year and a half younger. And so she'd be like, please don't fight
Mm.
or argue. She's like, we just need to try to keep the space kind of calm. And I remember being like, okay. And throughout that, I remember that Christmas being a mix of both. We had to go down to my grandparents for it because he was still in hospital. So we got a pass to go to the hospital and then he had to go back.
Mm.
Um, and I remember being a mix of like it was nice to see him, but like symptom like dizziness, complaining of headaches, irritability, um, really quick to respond reactively. And so you just never, you didn't really know what to expect.
Mm.
Um, that Christmas was hard for a lot of reasons because he was there and my mom was with him. Like my brother and I decorated the tree by ourselves that year.
Mm.
And like we had family friends that like checked in on us and mom called us all the time and but like my brother and I like raised ourselves for a bit that time. And I'm sure my mom came home in that time frame, but honestly, like I don't remember.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. And so you didn't see him in the hospital other than that first day.
No, the hospital was, besides that first day, the hospital was 8 hours away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we lived in the East Kootenays, and we just have like a small like regional hospital, and so he had to go to like a big hospital, and so the hospital he went to was 8 hours away.
And so that's where, yeah, I can
That's
imagine
where he was
so
for
hard for
the
your mom to go have to, yeah, figure that out.
yeah. So
Oh.
mom took, I'm pretty sure she got a leave from work and she just went and stayed because my grandparents lived in that area as well, so she
Mhm.
just went and stayed up there so that he had support. So that my brother and I were by ourselves at home. I'm
Oh,
sure
wow.
she like I know she checked in and she might have come home. It's 27 years ago, super hazy.
Yeah.
Um, but and then we went to the so we went to the Okanagan for Christmas that year. But yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. And I think already you're bringing up some things that are I hadn't fully considered. So I do really appreciate you bringing this perspective and things that I would like to bring out just that
Yeah.
the unpredictability, not knowing how he was going to respond, and then also traditions being altered, like not having the regular like familiar things happening around you and being left on your own. I mean, you were old enough to take care of yourselves, but still not really like that's
We're still
hard as a
kids.
17-year-old. Yeah, you're still
Yeah.
kids. So like there's so much there. And I imagine we'll get more of that as we go further into the story. But yeah, like that was your first interaction with him. I'm curious, your mom was saying we need to let him have some space and like have it be calm here and be quiet. Um, was that something that she just was aware of having interacted with him since she had been with him and or had they like warned them about that at the hospital or do you know where that advice came from?
From what my mom remembers and what we've talked about, they didn't educate her at all. Like
That's
education was non-existent on what to expect with somebody with a brain injury. I
okay.
mean, his treatment for his headaches was giving him like code Tylenol and Tylenol 3, and that was it.
Mm,
So yeah, he had
okay.
tons of dizziness that he remembers talking about, and he still does get dizziness, to be honest. But like things like physical therapy, occupational therapy, then that wasn't a th was absolutely not a thing
Mhm, mhm. Yep.
way back when. So I think mom had shared us that just from like her own interactions and observations and
Uh-huh.
stuff like that with him.
So how going forward, like how was this how did his concussion impact the family, how the household ran? It sounds like everything was upended. I imagine it was just there were a lot of changes. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you
Well, I mean
describe that.
the big piece, and then I'll backtrack, is I ended up moving out of my parents' house when I was 17 years old.
Mm,
Um, so my stepfather so it's my stepdad, but he raised me. So we got in an argument one day because he wanted me to do something, or I can't remember. But he told me he hated me.
mm,
And I went home and I packed a bag and I left. And my mom didn't try to stop me. And like, looking back now, I've gone through a lot of therapy in my life. Looking back now, like my mom was a rock in a hard place for sure. Um, and so when my stepdad came home, it the biggest things that I remember were again, it was like walking on eggshells
mm,
because you never knew if he was gonna have it. He always had a headache, like always had a headache. Um, and irritability was a big thing. And you never knew if it was going to be like if you said the wrong thing, if it was going to set him off, or if you were too loud, if it was going to increase the headache and he'd get angry, or it was a lot of emotional affective stuff
Mhm.
from that piece. Also, like short-term memory issues were a big thing. Like you would have a conversation and then he wouldn't remember having it. Or silent seizures started to develop too. So you'd be in the middle of a conversation and then he would just literally like zone out.
Mhm.
And then you'd have to like snap him back into it. Um, and then and then he would come back, but like you just and he wasn't aware of it. Um, he couldn't go back to work. So he was on permanent disability um, due to the dizziness and the headaches and all the symptoms. And it was like, you just I never wanted to be home. I mean, I was a 17-year-old girl who like I had a full-time job. I was like straight A's in school. I was in extracurriculars. I got my driver's license the moment I turned 16 so that I could have freedom and not have to ask my parents for rides because we lived 30 minutes out of town.
Mhm.
So I was a busy 17-year-old anyways. I played sports, but I never wanted to be home because when you were home, it was literally like walking on eggshells. And it's so funny now when you look at my profession today and you look at what I'm really good at, Bethany, and it's like I can pick up on people's energy shifts, attitude changes, behavior differences, and the smallest observation to know to change my treatment plan. And it's a like rock star skill of me today, but look where it came from,
Mhm.
right? Like I had to be that way so that there was calm in the house, so that my dad's headache didn't get worse. So that piece of thing in that regard, obviously, I'm sure. I just remember my mom saying one day, my mom doesn't talk a lot about it, like, and it's and if even if she did, that's her story. But um, I do know they struggled a lot, um, and I remember her saying one day she called my grandparents and was just like, "I need help." And I think that's when my dad's short-term memory was really bad, and he just wasn't remembering things, and that element, he completely lost his sense of taste and smell as well.
Oh,
Um, And but yeah, the accumulation of it was he'd been home, I don't know how long, not very long, before I packed my bag and left.
okay. So it wasn't very long
Uh-uh.
after you got back.
No.
Where did you go?
So I actually had a really good friend and her family took me in.
Mm.
So they had a spare room and they knew what was going on. And so they offered for me to live with them. And so I did for, uh, I ended up going back home. So I lived with them for probably about 6 months and maybe a little bit less than that. And I didn't really talk to my stepdad at all. Um, I had a strained relationship with my mom, but I still loved her to pieces. Like, and I still loved them both, but I was angry.
Mm.
Um, and so I would meet with my mom, like I'd go visit her at work or whatever, but like I never went to the house. Um, and then it was right before my high school graduation. And my mom, it was funny, it was like the one day like my mom asked me to come home. And at the same time, the place where I was staying was like, Natasha, we need to figure something out because I'd been staying with them for months and months, right?
Mm.
And I looked at my mom and I remember saying, because now I'm 18. And I remember saying, I'll come home, but I'm not a kid. Like in the however many months I'd been gone, like I maintained my straight A's. I worked a full-time job. I was living my own life. Like, you don't, I will respect you, but like, I'm not asking for permission to spend time with someone or to do a thing. I probably said it very differently back then.
Probably.
Um, and I went home and I don't truthfully remember. I mean, I think it was like I don't like my stepdad had been improving over time. Um, Less irritable, memory issues weren't as much. Um, so I don't really remember hugely like what things were like, what I remember. Because to this day, he doesn't remember that moment. Like that moment that's so pivotal for me in my life that caused
Mhm.
me to leave my parents' home. He has zero recollection. And when we look at brain injury and the personality changes that can happen and the impulsivity and the reactivity, like looking back at it now, I'm like, oh, well, no, okay. 17-year-old me couldn't begin to understand how he couldn't remember saying that to me. And I was so angry and so hurt.
Mhm.
And the fact that in my brain at the time, like you're lying to my mom to tell me and saying that you didn't say this when you did. Why would I make that up?
Mhm.
Right? Like 17-year-old brain who doesn't understand what's going on versus today being like, well, the personality changes, the impulsivity, the reactivity, the all of that today. Like, yeah, I get it. Because to this day, he does not remember that moment. And we've talked about it over the years. He's got zero recollection, none. But I do remember my graduation morning, him coming into my bedroom when I was getting ready and just sitting beside me and just looking at me and telling me that he loved me and that he was so proud of the woman that I was. I didn't expect to get emotional, sorry. Um, and I'm gonna say that was probably the one of the moments that started. It didn't fix the bridge. It was like the first brick was laid to start to rebuild the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's man, that's the this is an emotional topic. So I appreciate the sharing of it. I that just is I don't know, as I'm listening to this, it's heartbreaking on all levels just because you can like you're saying, like as an adult, knowing everything you know about concussions and brain injuries, like it makes so much sense that this
All of it
thing would
does.
play out for him. But it makes so much sense too that as a 17-year-old, like kid not knowing how like it would impact you that way. It makes total sense on both sides and it is really
Mhm.
really tender, like really heartbreaking. And I think as parents, I don't know, I appreciate what you're saying too about how his his coming in and having that conversation with you was so pivotal and not obviously didn't fix everything right there in that moment, but was the first step to rebuilding that bridge. And and I will talk about more about this later, I'm sure, but just that I hope that anyone who's listening to this as a parent who might be feeling guilty and having like, oh crap, what if I've done this? Or like, how am I interacting with my family in ways that might be causing problems like this? Just knowing that doing what you can when you can does make a difference. Like I think that's really beautiful. And yeah, I'm sure we will talk more about this. I'm curious, what have you talked to your brother? Like, how was this for him? Like when you left, what was that like?
Uh, my brother and I have never talked about it. Not that specifically.
Mm,
We've talked about challenges we had growing up,
mm,
like in that environment together. Like we have, and here's the really shitty part is like, I know there's, I know there's good memories in my family. I do.
yeah, of course.
Um, but it was one day actually when my brother, I don't know how we got on like the like remember when train with my
Mhm.
brother. This was a couple years ago, a few years ago now. Um, and it sucks because some of the first memories that come up are the ones that are not nice.
Mm,
And the challenges that we both felt in this area. But in terms of like, I think I felt some guilt at the time too, because I was in survival mode for myself. But I've always cared about my brother, obviously, and um, I left him in the house. And I mean, let's preface this. There was never any form of like physical abuse or like aggression, like physical aggression ever.
mm.
Um, I feel like that's probably important to say.
Yeah, I'm glad you
Um,
said.
um, but like, if I felt like I was walking on eggshells, so did my brother. And
Mhm.
then I left him to like fend for himself, is kind of how I felt.
Mm,
So we've talked a little bit around it. It's always interesting too when you know me, who's a very like feeling oriented person. My family is not.
mm,
My family does not talk about feelings. Um, and my family is like, I'm tough, I'm strong, I'm gonna suck it up, and I'm gonna move forward, and I'm gonna persevere. Which me today, me then, yes. It's funny when you think of like me today, you're like, what? So yeah. My brother lives 45 minutes away from me. I have a beautiful like 6-year-old little niece. But yeah.
Mm, yeah. It's just it sounds like it was just hard overall for everybody. When
Oh
you
yeah.
were when you moved back in, how long did you end up if you were just graduating, how long did you stay at that point?
So I broke my parents' heart when I didn't go to university right away. I walked away from the entrance scholarships because I was in love. Clearly, I'm not with that person and wasn't like 6 months after the school year started.
Dang it.
Oh, so what did I do? So I graduated and then so I moved back home in June. I left in I think it was January. Uh, so I stayed was home for about 6 months. And I actually moved to New Jersey and went to go be a live-in nanny.
Oh wow. Your path is so interesting, Natasha. I did not realize this. Okay.
And in all honesty, that was like the next step to my dad and I rebuilding our relationship.
How so? That's interesting.
So so I was a live-in nanny in this little town called Sparta, New Jersey. I learned the lesson of never take a job until you fully discuss the components and demands of the job. I worked all the time.
Mhm.
But I got an hour a day for my lunch, where I didn't have to, it was 3 kids where I didn't have to watch the kids. And this is going to age us, but this is when MSN Messenger was still a thing.
That does age
And
us.
right, Facebook didn't exist at this point. Like, nope. And so, I mean, frick, I still had dial-up internet when I was a kid. There was no internet when I was born. Hudson always laughs. He's like, Mom, that's not true. I'm like, no, dude, really is.
There was a time
Um,
for internet.
but so on my lunch break, I would go sit on the computer, and I'd open MSN Messenger. And so let's remember my dad wasn't able to go back to work. So he's really great at finding hobbies and like helping people out and doing that sort of thing. And so that's what he did more with his time. Um, and so I would go on MSN at lunchtime and my dad would be on their computer at home. And so we just started having more conversations via MSN and via chat in more of a like day-to-day environment.
Mhm.
Um, and so, because I think even when I moved back home, I wasn't home a lot. Um, but having daily conversations with my dad while I was living in New Jersey was, I'm going to say, like that next piece to really start to help to rebuild a neutral relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then from there, yeah, so I did that for 6 months. And then from there, that's when I moved to UBC. Um, and my second year of university was horrible. Um, I had some traumatic stuff happen to me in my second year of university. And so when I talk about, I always say to everyone in the concussion space, I've never had, I had an acute concussion maybe once that resolved in 4 days. And so I don't, and I'm always the first to say, like, I can't fully understand what you're going through because I have never lived this.
Mhm.
But from a trauma lens, I understand what it's like to lose your entire social circle of friends, to question your identity, to not know what you're going to do with your life or what the next step is, to stand on the side of a road and wonder if you should just step in front of the next truck coming forward, to being dismissed and told you're fine when inside you feel like you're falling apart and raging. Like those are emotions I have very acutely lived.
Mhm.
Um, and when I was going through that period of my lifeline became my dad. So when I say I lost my social circle, like everyone, like I had people that didn't believe what had happened. I had people who thought I was being ridiculous. I had people who it sucked. Um, and I started failing classes at university. And I would phone home every single day. Sometimes I would phone home 2 or 3 times a day um, to get through. And my mom worked full time. So the person who was always on the other end of that phone line was my dad.
Oh.
And he would just listen and sometimes offer some like neutral advice if I was asking for it. But he was just a constant support. Um, and it's like he understood what some of it felt like from the brain injury side of things.
Mm.
Because he'd gone through very similar things in his kind of journey of stuff too, right? And yeah, yeah, that was, I'm gonna say that I would, it's so funny because I'm like, well, I never wish trauma on anybody. What happened to me then was definitely a pivotal piece of where I ended up today and the like coming back and like gaining that closeness with my
Mm.
dad again, which for that I am very grateful.
Yeah, there can be beauty in ashes. That's thank you for sharing that. Um,
There's a funny story though. Let me give you a funny story. So I know how I said my dad left, like he lost his sense of smell and taste, right?
yeah, yeah.
So he would put hot sauce on everything because he could still have the sensation of the tingle, right? And he would like try to remember what certain things taste like. So he could still do textures and like crunch and stuff like that. And I remember I don't know where I was. And I don't remember this is like where this was in the journey, but I remember getting a phone call one night and literally I answered my phone and he just said, I could taste the cheesies. And I was like, what? And he's like, I was sitting here eating some cheesies, just crunching away because they didn't have taste. He's like, and suddenly he's like, I could taste them. So then he went into the kitchen and got something else and ate it and could taste it. And like, literally, there's still some things, but like, he went from not being able to taste anything to it was like a switch flipped and now
What?
he could taste stuff. Oh, yeah. No,
Amazing and wonderful, but how? Like that's
no
not
idea. I don't have a freaking clue.
that's
Like,
hilarious.
yeah.
But
And I was just
fantastic.
like, and he was so excited, and he'll never, because he was eating cheesies, like the crunchy, hard cheesies, the day he got his taste back.
That's fantastic. Oh, well, hallelujah. That is
Right? Like, oh, food is gonna be so much better at this point.
right.
Like, don't feel
Oh
like you're
man.
eating cardboard all the time.
Yes, that's awesome. So was he in any kind of therapy things? Like you said he didn't do OT or PT. Like, did he do
So I
any
think in the
treatment?
beginning, only so once he left the hospital, no, there was nothing. Medication was the only thing
Mm.
for his headaches. In the hospital, I do believe they had him actually see speech. Because I think in the very beginning there was some issues around that, and just being able to get the words out with the injury. But then he was totally fine from like being able to actually speak effective, and that was it.
Okay.
So he was discharged. He was followed by a neurologist like for a few years after, obviously, but it was like a yearly checkup. There was nothing that was done, and like therapy wise, again, we're talking like 26 years ago now. So, and because my dad's also like my dad's an I suck it up and go person,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if he could suck it up and do it, you didn't hear about it.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Which I think probably a lot of people listening to this can relate to or know somebody who's just like that. So it's like,
Mhm.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So how's he doing today? How did he make recoveries through this time or like what?
So continue to make recovery. So him and my mom live in the interior. So him and my mom are still together. I actually, it's been really interesting watching their marriage, I think, grow stronger, they went through hell.
Mm.
And they'll both tell you that. Like they went through, I think my mom said like a 3 or 4 year period of absolute hell. Um, and then they had to basically like rebuild their marriage. But it's been really cool to watch them rebuild, and to see where they are. They're happy. Like it's really nice to see that for both of them. Um, my dad still has symptoms. Like he's never gotten therapy, even though, and like we know what I do, but like but mostly for him today, uh, he's never, he can't, dizziness is still a big thing, particularly if he's like on an elevated level, or like looks back. Um, he still has tinnitus. I think he's always had tinnitus, like since day one of the accident. Still gets headaches. Still gets the silent seizures,
Mm.
but usually when it's usually linked now when they come with other significant life stressful events. So if life is so, when my grandfather died, which was his dad, um, they were more frequent, obviously. But in all honesty, like when I think of like the last, let's say 15 years, like he's never really had to modify life. He does what he wants to do when he wants to do it.
Amazing.
Like, yeah, he might get the odd headache or migraine here or there, and maybe he gets some more, and I just don't know. But like when we talk about having to like plan and pace and not do certain things, he does them.
That's fantastic. And how are you and him? Like it sounds like he was there for you in a really hard time. I assume that was helpful for your relationship. How
It was hugely helpful.
yeah.
For a while there, like my dad and I became significantly closer than my mom and I. Um, because my dad knew everything. Like when I would call home in those days, like I would like share everything. I remember the day when I called him too, like he was ready to get on a plane with a baseball bat, and I was like, no, we're not doing that. Um, so we became really close, for years. I mean, we still are. Like, so he's my stepdad, but him and my mom basically raised me since I was 5. Like he's been in my life since I was 5. I still have a relationship with my biological father as well. Like but it was, um, my parents didn't live close. Like my biological father lived 12 hours away. So I would see him on school holidays and stuff like that, and that's it. So when I got married, it was my stepfather who gave me away at my wedding, right? Like so I'd say I always feel grateful because, and I think that's part of what really like sparked that fire because yes, I was hearing the stories of the symptoms, which was like frustrating, but the stories that I was like, this isn't okay, were the stories people were sharing of the hardship their families were going through and that they felt helpless and that no one could explain it to them and that they were losing everyone they loved because of this injury. And those were the stories that I was like, it's at that point in time, it was like however many years later. And I was like, it's this many years later. And like, I don't want people to go through what my family went through. I don't want kids to have to feel what I felt.
Mm.
And at least if we can do more educating and more awareness, like maybe we can help this from, like, I'm one of the lucky ones who I feel like my dad and I were able to rebuild that bridge in a stronger way than we ever did, to be honest.
Mm.
I know many people that is not the gift they get. So
Yeah. Well, I do love and appreciate that you do have like looking at this bird's eye perspective of it, like you do have that history. You can look back and say, yeah, things are better on this end in these ways. And I think for people who are in it like that, I don't maybe that's like too much to even think about, but maybe it can be a little bit of hope of like, okay, there can be another side of this. There are things that are going to come from this that even though it is hell, literally hell in the moment, like there can it won't be that way forever. So I do really appreciate you sharing this story and knowing that your parents' marriage has, they had to be rebuilding, but it's stronger also. Like that's just, it's amazing and such a beautiful thing to sometimes look back and like look at that bigger picture and the things that can come of it. And so I do really I am very grateful for you sharing that, and also would love to hear what you tell people, like, because, and I appreciate too what you were saying about how that really did light that fire in you when you were hearing people's stories and just like connecting there. What do you tell people? Like, what advice do you give to people who are your patients in like managing that home life, or if you have, yeah, I think it would be interesting to hear what your
Mhm.
advice is for people in the who are the ones with the concussion who might have kids, and then what do you tell the family members from your own
Yeah,
personal experience?
so a part of that depends on like, because when you're working with clients too, it's like we take a very holistic lens, and we'll ask questions, but I'm not going to dig for things that they don't want to share, right? So usually it comes to play, like we ask how home life is going. Like we ask how things, and if the client then starts to share of like, I feel like I'm not being understood, or like the challenges, or like intimacy, or like whatever these things are that come up, um, our first thing always is like, does your so basically we've done sessions where we invite the partner or the entire family in for a session. And in that session, it is the like, this is your free, like, this is your space to ask whatever question you need to ask. And like, whatever you don't understand what's going on with dad or with mom, now you can ask me.
Mhm.
And there's definitely been these times where I basically act as a mediator. And because what happens is sometimes it goes really beautifully, and sometimes there's scenarios where, like, especially if there's kids involved or partners, they'll share like what their frustration is and like what they're seeing and what they're feeling. And immediately the person with the brain injury is like goes into the defense of, well, and so I'm diffusing the situation and helping to
Mhm.
like calm everybody and then paint the picture for both sides, because what you do see happen so much, and it's not anyone's fault, but you see the loved ones getting frustrated and like, when is my person coming back? And like, I can't keep carrying the weight, and like that perspective. And then you also see the person with the brain injury being like, my loved ones don't understand. Nobody gets this. Nobody's supporting me. Mixed with, I'm not the parent I want to be. I'm not the spouse I want to be. I feel bad and guilty because I can't contribute more. And so you get this whole dynamic of emotions going in. And sometimes the person with the brain injury cannot explain it. You know how it is. Like when we're heightened, that is not a time to try to explain anything.
Yeah.
Whereas inviting the family or the partner or the kids into a session, which is what we always do, we extend the invitation. And they'll say, like, I'll be like, the invitation is there if you want to come. And then basically it's the first question I always ask is, do you guys actually do you understand what a concussion is and how it's impacting your mom or dad? And so if the answer is no, then I start there.
Mhm.
And I start with explaining, I always start there, and I start with explaining, like I always say, like the battery analogy on like why mom can't do as much or why dad can't do as much. So I start with education, and then I'll be like, and then I open, and the whole point of that is like we're opening the floor to the family to ask the questions.
Mhm.
And then that's what we do. And then we kind of support. So I'll do that as many times as needed. The other thing, not that my team knows it yet or anyone at my clinic knows it yet, but we're about to launch we're about in 2026. Let me like actually like in 2026, we're gonna create a membership in the clinic, but we're gonna do a family add-on.
Mhm.
And in the family portion of the membership will be the ability to meet with a clinician once a month, a group counseling session once a month for the caregivers, and then education, because it doesn't just affect the person with the brain injury, it affects everybody.
Yeah. Yes. And I love that you're going to be doing that. It is not a one, it's not a victimless injury. Like
No.
it's not a single victim injury. It's everybody's impacted by
Mhm.
it. Um, do you think that having the education, like if somebody had sat down with you as a 17-year-old and said, "Hey, this is what's going on," do you think that would have made a difference for you?
That's a really good question. Maybe in some ways. I was a very high achieving, high performing perfectionist. straight A student, but also I was like a huge people pleaser as well. So, but I was still compassionate and I always had a big heart. So I think maybe if someone had, I think twofold would have been helpful, to be honest. When I say my family like sucks it up and pushes up, but like at that time, and I had no idea my mom was struggling. I found out as an adult that my mom was struggling. And so I think in that moment where I felt like I was getting, when we talk about wounds and like childhood wounds and all that stuff, I had a big abandonment wound. And in that moment when I was packing my bag and I felt like my mom was giving up on me and I felt like she was choosing him over me and I'm her blood. And and again, so many different like layers and thought process to that, right? But like I didn't know my mom was struggling too. And I think maybe having some understanding of like here's what's happening, like here's why these things are happening, and knowing that like it wasn't peachy keen for everyone else. And I
Yeah.
wasn't the only one who was, I mean, obviously I know what now. It's like I'd like to think maybe I had more awareness, but like at this, I remember my emotions from that time.
Mhm.
Um, but maybe having that understanding of like, and that conversation as a family. We didn't have a conversation as a family, Bethany.
Mm.
Not
Mm.
once about that I can remember about like, here's the challenges, like, here's how this is hard. Like, each person was left to figure it out on their own.
Yeah. Which is so lonely. And so again, I think it's so understandable, like that that's how it played out. And I think so many people, that's how they deal with it. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, this is my thing. I just have to deal with it. They're like it. Yes, I
And it's
so
that piece
agree.
of like, I love my parents dearly. And when I look back at it, like they were also just trying to figure it out because they didn't know what was going on either. No one had educated either of them on what to expect or how to cope with this in life either. So like they're sitting there trying to figure it all out. They're still trying to be parents to like moody 15 and 17-year-old teenagers.
Right.
I hold no ill regard in any way, shape, or form to my parents because everyone was just trying to figure it out.
Well, and I think that that might be another helpful thing for parents in this situation to hear. Like, okay, one, like have the conversation with the family. Let's sit and talk about when we're not hyped up and like really amped up and angry or whatever. Like let's talk about what's hard and know that
Mhm.
it might be a hard conversation, but like having it out there might be very, very helpful. But also just that thought that I had that was really, it was a really good thought. Dang it.
It'll come back.
It will. It might come back. I hope it comes back. But I think that it's so important to have those conversations and to, oh, that's the other thing. Thank you. It did come back. Um, to know that they are kids right now. Like if you're a parent dealing with this and your kids are kids and they're having their own emotions and experience of your injury, like know also that they will grow up and at some point be able to look back and hopefully like see things from a perspective that makes sense as an adult and with those eyes and have that grace and compassion. And it might be a long time in coming, but again, things can settle out and work out and be okay, even if they're not okay in the moment. I just think that's an important thing to, that you're setting you're
Yeah.
showing a really good example of all of these things.
Well, and I think, thank you. I think it's really important. Like, if we, now this is like adult Natasha who's done a whole bunch of work and all the stuff, but like, if we have a scenario in life where we are holding on to so much resentment and anger for something that happened. I think it gives you an invitation because we all hold on to our perception of what happened,
Yes, we do.
right? And my perception of what happened, guaranteed, night and day difference from my brother's perception, my mom's perception, and my dad's perception,
Mhm.
right? There are multiple truths to a scenario. And the perception or the truth we see gets filtered through our own nervous system and through our own lens and through our past traumas and through our hurts and through our emotions. And to be able to try to, if there is a scenario where you're holding pain or holding resentment on either side of a thing, um, to step back and be like, and pull that like that zoom out and that 360 to try to step out of your perception and be like, A, what is actually the root of why I'm holding on to this? Because it's not usually an incident. It's like, how did that incident make you feel? And what else did that trigger in you? And then where does that come from? right? That's usually why resentment gets held on to. And so when we can figure out, do that work, we don't need the other person to do anything for us to do that work ourselves. And when we can do that work ourselves, it then opens the door to be able to step back and be like, oh, my truth is my truth, but I can see how
Mm,
this might have been someone else's truth. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it. Doesn't even mean you have to be okay with it. But when you can start to see that,
yeah.
you can then step back and go, okay. And it kind of starts to let some of those feelings and those frustrations melt away.
Yes. Thank you. And I think a really that's I like want to say amen. Like that is such important truth that you just shared there. And I love the point that you made that the other person doesn't have to be involved in you doing the healing work for yourself.
Mhm.
And it's for you. It's not like I think a lot of times if we're resentful, you're right, we're making it mean something about ourselves. Like there's deeper things as to why we're holding on to it, but we feel like in some ways maybe holding on somehow punishes them, but like remembering it doesn't actually it impacts us and it just hurts us. And so um and and that person doesn't even have to change for us to be able to find
Correct.
peace, find healing. And obviously if we need to protect ourselves or whatever, like we can do that, but
Mhm.
we can do that and be be healed ourselves even if things don't change there. But a lot of times I do think that that healing has outward effects as well. So I just,
Absolutely.
yeah, thank you for sharing that. Is there anything that you want to say to families who are maybe dealing with this or that we haven't already covered, like advice for kids specifically if they're hearing this, or things that you want to just make sure that gets said on this topic?
I mean, I think it's that important piece of I think you need to pull in other resources. I think to try to twofold, to try to depend on the person with the injury to fully explain what's going on is not possible. Um, and vice versa, for the family member who is struggling, understanding that, and this isn't everyone, but like when we're the person with the injury and with the concussion likely has some, like they're carrying their own guilt. They're carrying their own challenges. And so they're probably also a little bit heightened. And so sometimes if you go to bring up a conversation and they get reactive, that's not the time to do it. But I do think that, and don't, I think the biggest thing would be don't hold it in, right? Like the moment you start feeling challenges, the moment you start feeling resentment, the moment you start having questions, ask them. Because it's so much easier to help support someone and guide someone and give tools when we're dealing with one or two things that have started to creep up versus compounding those things time and time again. To then you're dealing with bitterness, hurt emotions, and the logical things of day to day versus in the beginning, if we have this conversation and if we can preemptively be like, okay, we got three kids in three sports, and mom works full time, and dad's got the concussion, and we need to get people somewhere. There's people that their job is to figure out that would, I'd be like, call an occupational therapist, book a consult with an occupational therapist or me so that we can help you figure out the puzzle together.
Yes.
Because not only is like that our gift, we understand the injury. And so I think my, to make that really long answer succinct,
You're
I would
good.
say call in resources and help sooner.
Mm, yes. Can I get an amen to that? Like let's,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And
Call it in sooner. Don't wait to see if things get worse. Call it in sooner.
And there are resources now, which you guys
There's
didn't
so
have
many
back
now.
then. There's so many. Yes, yes. Book an appointment with me, book an appointment with Natasha. There are a lot of other people out there who are helping in this space. So I love that perspective and would love to have you tell us a little bit more about what the help is that you offer. Like how do you, I we mentioned a little bit, but if you want to
Yeah,
like
so
help
I,
people.
I do a few things. So let's split it into two.
Okay.
So first, for people on a healing journey, and family members, I do virtual consultations. And I say virtual consultations is basically helping you like chart a path forward. That is kind of the purpose of it. We have a free community for individuals on a healing journey called Concussion Mini School. It's basically a video resource library of, there's probably hundreds of hours of education in there at this point. And there's a private community and a free monthly coaching call a month for that. And then obviously I own Symphony Brain Performance in Nanaimo, BC. And so I do a concussion intensive program. And so that's where clients fly in to come work with me in person for a week. And then I support them virtually for 3 months after. So I have that. And then I do speaking and stuff. So that's basically if you're on a healing journey or a loved one, kind of your options there. From the clinician side, I have workshops and then, of course, my signature mentorship program, which you're part of, which is Concussion Nerds. So, Concussion Nerds, I created it because the world needed it. Really, honestly, that's the only thing I can say. It's like there's other good concussion courses out there. There really is. Um, but there needed to be something that took people deeper into both a level of understanding. There needed to be something that better outlined how you actually do integrative holistic rehab, um, and kind of took that full lens. And I think clinicians need their own community.
Mm.
Working with individuals with persistent concussion can be challenging and it can be very emotionally taxing on the clinicians if that is their full-time caseload. We love it. Like, let me get that straight. We love it, but we also need our own space to share, to vent, to brainstorm, to celebrate. And that none of that existed. And so I created Nerds to be that. It was that space that had a community that was for us. It has a level of education. I mean, you've gone through the curriculum, so you can speak to it, but like has a level of like education and didactic learning that takes you deeper than most any concussion program out there, but is very applicable. It's not just knowledge. And then I think my favorite, and then obviously you get mentorship with me throughout the month live. And then honestly, we added the immersion weekends this year, which you got to come be a part of, and I freaking love it. So it's like you get the whole program. And then if you're someone who's like Bethany or like me, who also just like it just gets so much more solidified hands-on and in person, we created the immersion, which is part of the Nerds tuition. It's not an extra cost. And you get to come hang out for a weekend in Nanaimo and we go through it all in real life and work with patients and all the things. And so that is Concussion Nerds is my other like, I love it. It's my other like passion and baby and all that stuff.
I don't know when you sleep. Like those are both, either of those by themselves would be like a full-time job and amazing thing. But it is, yeah, I love what you're doing in this space and the ways that you're helping people. And I do love your perspective because it is like and I think probably a lot informed from your own personal experience. It is very holistic. It looks at the family life and you're asking about all of those things. And I do appreciate that you recognize the need for that. And yeah, it's fantastic. So everybody check out Natasha's programs. They're so good. And one of the things, I think one of the biggest things that I appreciate about Concussion Nerds is just having people to bounce ideas off of because right now I'm kind of doing a solo thing. I'm not in a clinic. And so having other clinicians who work with people with concussion specifically and understand that, it is its own unique thing. So being able to talk to other people and ask questions and get perspective can be very, very helpful. So whether you're a clinician or somebody who's on a concussion recovery journey, check out Natasha's stuff. It's so good. So
Thank you.
um, well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing this. I know again, I think hearing stories is very helpful for people and hearing this perspective. Yeah, as a child living that, and then as an adult who specializes in this space, I just think you have a really beautiful perspective and ways to share that are unique and very helpful. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I don't think I have never shared that full story before. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm so glad you listened in today. I hope you have gained some helpful insights and inspiration regarding dealing with and recovering from concussions. My goal is to create more awareness and education about concussions and the fact that there is so much that can be done to improve life after someone has had one. Help me spread the message by liking, commenting, rating, and subscribing to this podcast, and share it with others who would benefit from hearing it. There are more resources available on my website. And again, if you or someone you love would benefit from concussion coaching, sign up for a free consultation using the link in the show notes or at my website, www.theconcussioncoach.com. Thank you. See you next time, and take good care of that amazing brain of yours.